One of my biggest gripes with Halo since 343 took over is what they've done with the story of Halo since they took control of the IP. And what I'm saying is that the story from Halo 4 to Halo 5 Guardians to Halo Infinite has just been all over the place. Unless you've read the extended lore that they've been pumping out, you don't really know what's going on in the campaign. And to me, that's just a negative because Halo has always been a more popular game and less popular book series. So the majority of people don't read the books, which means they don't really know what's going on in the story. And I don't really have a problem with things like expanded lore. In fact, I think it helps enriches IPs like Halo, because then you're getting backstory on characters that you don't get in something like the video game, because in the video games you're only able to tell specific stories. One of my favorite books from the expanded lore is honestly Contact Harvest. I think that is great lore that we get on one of the game characters, Sergeant Johnson, and you can't get that in a game, especially with him not really being the main character in any of the Halos. He's just a side character, but he's made more interesting because of the lore you're able to read on him. But most people don't read it, and that's fine. I think 343 needs to not go back on its writing and using the lore as a crutch. The campaigns need to stay connected like Halo 1 was to Halo 2, like Halo 2 was to Halo 3. You should be able to play those games in chronological order and understand the story. And the fact of the matter is, if you play Halo 4, Halo 5, and Halo Infinite, you have no clue what's going on. Of course, Halo 4, since it was their first game, is the best about keeping you in the loop. But Halo 5 and Halo Infinite, you're just like, what's happening? I just don't think 343 should be using the expanded lore sources like the books, the comics, and Halo Wars 2 to fill in the holes left in the campaign of the main Halo games. The main Halo games should be filling in the holes themselves. And it's fine to have expanded lore in between the games. I think a good example of this is Halo 1 to Halo 2. There's a book called First Strike, which gives you the exact details on how Master Chief went back to Earth. But if you don't read the book, pretty much understand what's going on, because at the end of Halo 1, when he leaves on that plane, or what was it, a sword ship or whatever, you get it. You're like, okay, he just flew to Earth. You're not left out of the loop regardless if you read First Strike or not. You understand the plot. And that's what 343 is missing. They need to understand that if you're going to put expanded lore into the main campaign stories, you need to do it in a way that doesn't confuse people. Because that's how you keep the Halo games more mainstream. People shouldn't be looking at Halo Infinite going, wait, how's the Master Chief back on the Infinity? Why are we not on St. Helios? Where's the Arbiter? Where's Fred, Kelly, Linda? Where's Agent Locke? Where's all these people? There's so many questions that need to be answered in Halo Infinite. And the truth is, we don't get any answers. We just have blank questions. And I know some of the answers to those questions I just said might have been done through an audio log, but I still think that's kind of a poor way of explaining important story details. If you're going to add something to a story, you need to make sure that you answer it through the main story and not through something that you can completely miss. And the reason why Halo 4, Halo 5 Guardians, and Halo Infinite feel so disjointed is honestly the same reason why the Star Wars trilogy, in my opinion, felt so disjointed. It's because they had 3 different lead writers for those games, like the Star Wars trilogy had 2 different directors, which originally was supposed to be 3. I think the best way of having a story like that is if you have one person writing everything. And of course they can have help and stuff, but you need a main head instead of 3 different heads. Because all of a sudden you have 3 different people writing a story, and they may not see eye to eye on the vision, which is very apparent in the Halo trilogy that we got from 343. Because in Halo 4, for example, spoilers if you haven't played those games, they kill Cortana. But then in Halo 5, she comes back, she's a villain. But then in Halo Infinite, she's dead again, but she's a good guy apparently. There's just no consistency, and you're just like, what is happening? And it, in my opinion, kind of cheapens the experience of Halo, because in Halo 4, when Cortana died, it was a very emotional, well-done moment. But then in Halo 5, I personally cringed really hard when she came back and she was basically the Didact 2.0. And it was hard for me to take the created seriously when she and her faction basically died off screen between Halo 5 and Halo Infinite. And it's just like, I know it was a bad plotline, but the way you guys did it is terrible. Like, you should have written this a lot better. Because I don't understand why she got a change of a heart all of a sudden. Because I'm missing a bunch of story bits that are probably in books, but I'm not going to read the books because I'm not interested in the story. But don't get me wrong, I've heard those books are good. It's just hard for me personally to be interested in them when I know that the authors that could be using their talents to make a cool new Halo story are being wasted to write over bad writing that came from the main Halo games instead of writing their own unique cool stories. And that's another thing too, is I think 343's made the Halo extended lore also suffer because it's not about adding flavor to the expanded universe of Halo. It's about filling in plot holes left between Halo 5 and Infinite and 4 and 5. Because all of a sudden we have all these questions, but instead of answering them, they just think to themselves, you know what? Instead of answering them, why don't we answer it in a book? Make them buy the book, and if they don't get the book, then they're not going to understand the next Halo game. Well, that sounds like a genius idea, except for the part where I'm not going to read the book. And I do think it would be different if the books were more popular than the games, but that's a fantasy, and the reality of the matter is that the games should always have a story that you could understand. And here's a minor gripe, but I don't like to see the Didact and Guilty Spark return in the books, but not have anything happen in the games. Because it's like, the Didact was meant to be the big bad guy of Halo 4, but we never hear about him again, but he was in the Halo Escalation comics where he dies the first time, and now he returns in a book. I just feel that if you have a video game character like the Didact, he would have been better for the games instead of Cortana and the Banished that also comes from a side game that most Halo fans don't really play because the people that play RTS and FPS are different. I also don't like seeing characters come back from death because it starts to cheapen it a little bit, and I don't know if it's a very big problem in the expanded lore, but it's something I wanted to call out because I've heard about it, and it's like, I'd rather these characters just stay dead if they ended up dying. Unless it's the Didact, I think he would have been way better as a villain than what we got in the other two games. And I know the Banished isn't bad per se, it's just they're really underdeveloped, and most people don't play Halo Wars. Thank you for watching the video. These are just some complaints I had about how 343's been handling the story of Halo since they took control in 2012. If you have your own thoughts and opinions, please put them in the comments, and...
I'm sorry, sir. It's time for you to leave.